Did anybody else feel those demonic vibes just radiating off of Shiki this chapter? An all around just honed in on target, ready for absolute like decimation. He was very determined for this ship to go down for, well, this mech. So chapter starts out, we know that he ended up, figuring out that the gravity aspect, the ether that was formed for his gravity attacks themselves, don't work on the Kurenai Dragoon because it has a coating around it that makes it so you can't like affect these suits in terms of like using his ether gear. It just doesn't affect. And as well as when he goes to punch it with gravity, it doesn't it doesn't affect as well. It just bounces off. But the fist itself still hits, and he can still apply things like weight to either himself or to areas around him, and then go against it. And just at like the first start of the fight, you have the Kurenai Dragoon end up shooting some like ether beams at him, just carving into the ground. He's just going around dodging these beams, getting all over the place. Just has some nice maneuverability, and she just like lasers. I like the first part because it was just like a straight like seemingly like a laser just carving the ground, and then some explosions of it afterwards. I like though the after that, when you see it, she ends up like looking over, and you just see like a straight clear cut, like carved, like of heat and energy just go through all these buildings. And then after that, she ends up shooting like this big missile, the Queen Nova, and it goes flying through the air. You hear Shiki's like, logically he's gonna try and get away from it. We know that he's fast, but he can't like keep up with a missile forever. He can't like completely keep that that level of speed and straight up maneuverability on something like as fast as a missile. And he's like, okay, you're gonna do kind of like a much more classic thing. He's gonna wait. He's going to try and get it close enough, and then dodge last second. Didn't work. There it still comes. It's not going to explode until it goes and reaches its target as it's supposed to. And what's funny is that I'm really curious how many people are going to think that the detonation on a missile is on that frontal cone. It's actually not. It's close to the middle. But here it is. He's coming in. He ends up landing on top of the mech itself. And I really like that panel because you have just like Kurenai looking out through like that see-through screen, and here she is just like looking up at him, missile in the background, and he's just like smiling. He doesn't really care what exactly is about to happen in terms of the negativity as it could arise. But in reality, he's like, well, let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how exactly this whole bit really takes place. But anyway, here he is just landing. He waits, catches the missile last second, and he's holding it in place. He's holding it from getting close enough to detonate. He's just like keeping it in one spot with his gravity. And he's using that force from the missile, like, the energy output that's going from like the rocket, and he's using the kinetic energy to convert into higher levels of gravity. So I'm wondering about that. Is if it's straight kinetic energy, is if it's like energy absorption and conversion, or he's straight just holding it, and then as the rocket's pushing on him, he's just using that to kind of like stick his fist into the mech itself, and then increase the missile, because the missile doesn't have the ether coating that makes it so it can't be affected. So he's still affecting the weapon and making it so maybe it's like getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and yet the force on it is pushing it to increase the gravity around it, which I think is the most likely one. It would be kind of like some form of like energy absorption conversion. I feel like that's something maybe you could give something like that at some point, but it'd be kind of like weird out of nowhere. I think that the most logical idea, given what we know about Shiki's power, is he's just increasing the gravity of the missile, and then obviously the rocket on the missile, constantly pushing him and pushing him and pushing him with that increased gravity. And at least I was right about, I thought he was going to do like some form of like maybe get like damage it and find a weak spot, maybe a plating comes off, and then like has to time a gravity comet go through an opening. But at least I was right, he got into that full body form. And one thing I did notice that I was like considering, because I talked about this recently, it's not important stuff, it's just kind of like color schemes. is because it wasn't until a little bit after the initial chapter when we got that full body ether gear on Shiki that I noticed his hair changed colors. It just wasn't. I was looking more at the sick tattoo designs and the layout of the ether gear, and I was looking, oh yeah, his color. You know, the color of his hair shifted. I was thinking, like, because we know that the ether gear lines on his body are green, so maybe it's green hair, but I think it's purple. It looks much closer to the gravity around like his attacks, and we know we've seen color pages of that, and that though is purple. I like that color scheme for him, is that purple and green. I think that was pretty sick. But he just keeps increasing the gravity around him. He gets that full body form with those like little wings on his head, and ends up using like a new attack, gravity impact, and just blasts right into the Kurenai Dragoon, breaking it, and then standing over Kurenai as she's like freaking out the fact that a human could do this, like questioning whether or not he's even human. This panel where he's looking over her actually reminds me a lot of when Zareth was looking over Ultir back in the Sirius Islander. If you go back and look at that part, I think it's chapter 220, 221, I think, somewhere around there, when she's just like kneeling to him and he's talking about how he's angry. He just has that same kind of like boss character look down upon someone that he just sees as utterly below him. He's just annoyed, complete glare. And everybody else is just like kind of happy, you know, it looks like it's all defeated. You know, a lot of the Punisher robots are shutting down, and you have Nino, who has decided that he just doesn't want to be a part of this. He says anime will save the universe, but he doesn't know if he can save anyone, because he was conflicted. He seemed much more like he's only with Kurenai because, you know, his belief that being, you know, allied to her would eventually lead to the savior of the universe. But I'm hoping he's like, well, no, maybe it was being with her led me to you guys, and that will end up saving the universe. I think Nino is cool. I'm fully on board with this guy either. I'd like him to join the crew. I think he might end up joining the crew, or he'll end up maybe being some kind of like on and off again character who, you know, we run into every other arc or something. But here then they have all meeting back up. Everything seems to be kind of getting closed down, and here is Shiki, who is presenting Kurenai to Homura. So with that, like we're in those last little stretches, just the closure portion of the arc, because we've already had all of the bad guys defeated. You know, Garrett's straight dead. Baku's down. Well, Nino again, I think this really just confirms that Nino faked losing. He went down on purpose, because he looks perfectly fine. He looks like he didn't really take any damage. He's just standing up. He doesn't seem to like have any signs of like, oh yeah, I'm struggling to get this button and this stuff pressed. I even beat up the dude that was in charge of it, that weird squid guy, dude looking like a Bellsprout. And here he is now, end up helping a lot of people. So the question is, what is Homura gonna do? I'm very curious to what Homura's gonna do, because Homura, I don't know what reason she would have not to kill Kurenai, or at least just straight discard her, like not care about her. I don't think she's gonna have like some like, oh, I forgive you moment. It's probably just gonna be like she's gonna talk to her and have much more of a disappointed and like, I don't see you as a mother thing anymore. I want her to like straight kill her. I'm hoping she kills her, because it'll give such a different tone vibe, and it will open up like different aspects about their characters, and I think it'll make sense over like what happened with Valkyrie. And I don't know if anybody really cares to see Kurenai redeemed. I think her character is, I don't think anybody likes her outside of the fact that she's, you know, a hot chick, and she's got a mech, but like personality wise, she's just straight rotten. She's not really likable. She's just an all around bad person. She's not like, you know, she's not like, oh, yeah, no, you're a villain for a reason. You have some form of like, thing up your sleeve. It's like, no, she's just kind of a bitch. I don't even want to say, like, she's a bitch. She's just, like, a straight bad person. Like, all around bad in, like, every aspect. I don't think there was one redeeming quality to her outside of her looks. And obviously the fact she had a mech. But, I don't know. Homura, though, I feel like she'd be willing to, because we already know she's fine with killing. Like, she just had Garrett stabbed to the chest. So, like, the idea of killing her, like, an enemy doesn't seem like it would elude her. Just the question would be, is that going to open up more for her character later on? Is it going to be, like, a closure thing? Or maybe she, like, starts to think, like, you know, maybe, like, killing is way more, like, of a quick option than others. The Eden Zero team doesn't seem like they'd be really care about killing as much. Whereas, like, Haru's team didn't really like killing. The only and then you had, like, the Fairy Tail crew. Most of them were, like, out of the main cast, like, Urza and Gray were fine with killing. Natsu didn't like to kill, but he would. And then I'd have to go back and look. I don't think Wendy had definitely killed Easel, and then with Lucy, I don't know if Lucy has any straight confirmed kills. I think Jackal was always assumed to be dead. Obviously, he's dead now because they're dead. I'm trying to think if she had any straight kills throughout the series. I have to go back and look, but the Eden Zero crew, I don't know. I feel like they're much more inclined to it because they're being built up to have much more of like an outlaw nature to them, and obviously Shiki is, you know, this new refurbished version of the Demon King taking after his grandfather. So we'll see how that goes. I really like this spread with his gravity impact. I thought that was really neat. It's like that kind of like adding things to like his character. That would be really cool to see like more of like something like this, because his gravity impact, it's not like he just did some like big attack. He had to use something else. So like imagine if maybe he was fighting a guy in the future. He's like, I'm going to use my gravity impact, but maybe instead of a rocket, he ends up using his ether gear, makes like this big, like, I don't know, like a 50-foot wide boulder, like almost weightlifts, takes it with him, and then, you know, goes on his opponent, and then not only returns makes it so it's heavy again, the boulder, but then like drastically increases it to make, you know, his impact way heavier, and then maybe that's how gravity impact will work. Or something kind of like X Burner, like the original version from Hitman Reborn, because he had to use one arm to stabilize himself, and then use the heat from the other one to do like that big energy beam. But I don't know. I have that, like, just that kind of question of how exactly he's gonna run gravity impact again, because like Gravity Comet, he's just, you know, he's doing like a straight drop down, like gravity increased dive bomb, whereas this looks like he needs to have some form of setup, whether that be a rocket or just any kind of like additional weight, anything that really can add to it. I mean, with kinetic energy, like he could do that with a boulder, like, you know, just drop it in the air, jump down on him, and then let it fall, catch it, and do the same thing, because it's just kinetic energy he's adding onto himself and then dropping that into gravity. I imagine that he could do it again. I don't think Shiki's I don't think he's dumb. Personally, I think out of the three of them, out of Haru, Natsu, and Shiki, I think Shiki's going to be the smartest, but the most oblivious, because he seems to have that kind of, he'll run that into that, like, he's so smart, he doesn't get normal things about people kind of thing. Just that, you know what I mean? You ever met somebody that's really smart, and then they miss over things just because their brain works so oddly? But anyway, comment below. Tell me, thought about the chapter. Like, did anyone else, like, anyone else think of that scene? Like, as soon as I saw him looking down on Kernite, I thought of that whole bit where Zareth was looking down at Ultear. I thought that was a really cool way to just add onto that Demon King title. But other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, but from the like button and the subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But that, everyone's already subscribed, and I thank y'all for listening. Bye.